welcome to The World This Week by Wah. I'm Wah. This is the week ending September 21st, 2008. I'm going to do a little bit of a different format this week as we went through and cut up all the stories that we posted this last week, and now we're going to try and do them all under each individual topic. Starting this week, of course, the economy. We'll talk a little bit about the candidates' tax plans, some of the telecom industry BS, shall we say, a little bit more on Russia, Georgia, and Miss Palin, then a little bit about the NSA, some science news, a little bit about culture, some presidential updates, and then the conclusion. We're going to try and cut this up into about 10-minute segments. We had a little bit of a problem last week with the YouTube stuff, but we'll get over that. I had a good time doing it last week, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, welcome, comrades, to the really United States of America. Looks like we own some insurance companies, a couple banks, actually most of the banks, if not all of them. Looking at doing about $700 billion to bail this out. What they're going to do is raise our debt ceiling to $11.3 trillion and just print up a bunch of money. Isn't that awesome? Had a post about that, and then talked about this a little bit. You got to realize, if we had changed things a little while back, as Bush and many of the Republicans wanted, we wouldn't have just lost a lot of investment. It would have been all the retirement money. It would have been all these people trying to retire, and their Social Security would be wiped out in some cases. This is what people were talking about with the privatization of Social Security. Put it in the stock market, you get much better returns. Or you lose it all. That's great. Let's see, go to that. I've also got a little bit on the world's biggest bailouts. This was from Foreign Policy magazine. What we're doing now is well beyond anything that's ever happened in the history of before. And also, I kind of wanted to make a quick personal apology, as I recently saw what was going to happen and pulled a lot of money out. Actually, all of my money. I had a post a little while back about how the last 10 years have really been useless for that kind of investing. Folks, this isn't like something that's going to clear up tomorrow. We're in for a really rough ride, and for a long time. We're changing the entire way the U.S. banking system works. We own it now. We're all big industrialists. Congratulations, comrades. Good work. Moving on a little bit, excuse me, and talk a little bit about the tax policy and how that's gone back and forth. Let me read you something real quick. Let me see. Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Joe Biden said Thursday that paying more in taxes is the patriotic thing to do for wealthier Americans. In a new TV ad that repeats widely debunked claims about the Democratic tax plan, the Republican campaign calls Obama's tax increases painful. Under the economic plan proposed by Democratic candidate Barack Obama, people earning more than $250,000 a year would pay more in taxes, while those earning less, the vast majority of American taxpayers, would receive a tax cut. I'm going to go ahead and put up a graphic here that kind of shows how the tax cut goes. I put one earlier. What you've got to look at here is, I think this is a much more, excuse me, realistic tax plan, at least Obama's, than McCain's. McCain, he's doing the same thing, he's giving bigger tax cuts to people with the most money. He's giving them bigger tax cuts than most people make. And at this point, I just don't think we need to do that, when we need to actually have some money coming into the government instead of them just printing money. The problem with printing money is each time they do that, that makes all the money we have worth less, which we've seen on the global markets as the dollar falls, and they print up this much more. In this case, it might not happen because everybody else is supposedly going to be doing the same thing, since they all got screwed on this thing as well. I got into a little argument about the tax policy on another site. You can read that. I go out and argue with people all the time. I think that's one of the fun things to do on the internet. Actually, this guy was good enough. We went back and forth a little bit. People don't ever admit they're wrong on this kind of stuff. Usually when I do this, I get banned and deleted like I did on the To continue, I want to do a little bit about something I read about the text message scam. Let me read you this real quick. A key member of the Senate Judiciary Committee is asking the nation's top 4 wireless carriers to justify the, quote, sharply rising rates they charge people to send and receive text messages. In letters to top executives at Verizon Wireless, AT&T Incorporated, Sprint Nextel Corporation, and T-Mobile, Wisconsin Democrat Herb Kohl said Tuesday that he is concerned that rising text messaging rates reflect decreasing competition in the wireless business. Now basically what happened here is all four of these companies kind of raised their rates at the same time. Text messaging is, and this is personal opinion here, one of the biggest scams around. The easiest way I illustrated it is say, like, you get free phone calls on nights and weekends, supposedly because the network traffic is so low. Why aren't text messages free during those times? They don't take up a lot of bandwidth. They're 160 characters. It's like 161 bytes. They're so small. I can't imagine what they take up. And they're so expensive. Essentially what you have is a bunch of guys sitting around saying, gosh, wouldn't it be great if we had a dime for every time somebody sent or received a text message? And so with the lack of general competition, the way the market works out, they can do this and raise their rates. So they're just going to look at that a little bit. Personally, I think it's one of the biggest scams. Our telecom market is not very competitive on a rate basis. And we don't have the great infrastructure now. It's people with the 3G iPhones now. It's not that hard, or excuse me, not that easy to get really good data rates. Moving on, this is probably the meat of this one. This is about Georgia and Russia and Palin. One of the problems that international arms situation, or excuse me, international relations, this one having to do with arms, is people don't just fight each other with superpower. They don't just go up one against the other. You move the pieces around and set things up. So in response to one of our deals with Georgia, where we gave them basically $1 billion to help fight Russia, Russia announced this deal, and it says, Russia snubbed its nose at the United States today by announcing plans to sell military equipment to both Iran and Venezuela. The head of state arms exporter said that Russia was negotiating to sell new anti-aircraft systems to Iran despite American objections. Contacts between our countries are continuing, and we do not see any reason to suspend them, Anatoly Isaikin said, General Director of Rosenborn Expert, told Rosa Novatsky at an arms fair in South Africa. So essentially what they're going to do is not go directly at us, but sell things to people that we don't like. In the case of Iran, you've already got Israel talking about making strikes on their nuclear power industry or nuclear weapon industry, depending on who you ask. With Venezuela, they're just talking smack. Basically, all these three countries, Russia, Venezuela, Iran, are so wealthy right now with the energy money coming in that they're doing this. And if we start talking smack, this is what happens. I talk also about the possibility that my true worry is that they're going to basically do something like Charlie Wilson decided to do and start funding the freedom fighters in Afghanistan, give them some modern weapons, and then all of a sudden our helicopters are going to have some trouble. We're going to go ahead and take a little break here because I think we're getting close to the 10-minute time limit. And then we'll come back, pick up on this same story. We've got a whole bunch more to talk about. The more I'm going on here now is about Palin and her situation with this. And we'll be back in just a moment.